What's up YouTube? Welcome to another tutorial. Today we're going to be going over, hopefully very quickly, how to get Lottie to work on hover. So when you hover onto something it plays the animation, when you hover out it stops, and whilst you're hovering it should loop the animation. So my previous website looked like this, and this was just sort of a placeholder. I always wanted to animate these properly, but at the moment they just sort of bounce up and down, which I've got a tutorial on, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper and actually do custom animations here. So now you can see when you hover over each one it plays a little custom animation. Very nice, very fun, and it was a little bit of a pain to try and get them to loop, and to when I move my mouse out it stopped the animation where it is. So most of the time it would loop, and then when I moved my mouse out it would then play the animation in reverse and all sorts of things like that. So hopefully it's going to be very quick for me to show you how to get this to work. So I've already created my animation, we won't go into that, obviously you can create your own. So at the moment all I've got here in Webflow, I've just got a section I've called home wrap, and I've given it 100% width, 100 vertical viewport height for the height, just so it fills the page, background color of blue. I've set it to flex, just so we can get our content in here. So let's put in a wrapper. So I'm going to put in a div just to contain our animation. So let's call this Lottie wrapper. And I'm just going to make this 400 by 400. Let's make it flex as well, and let's give it a background color just so we can see it, and you'll see why. So if we give it background color something like this, that looks fine. And let's make it a circle. So we just massively increase the border radius, and then there we've got a circle right in the middle of our page. So this is going to house our animation, and it's also going to act as the trigger. So when we hover into this circle, the animation will play. So inside here we press Command and E to bring up the Find Anything menu, which is amazing, by the way. We're just going to write Lottie. There we go, we've got Lottie animation. And just make sure that is inside, yep. And then you would come over here and you would upload your Lottie file here. I've already uploaded this one, but perhaps let's put the one of the computer screen in. So we just hit upload. I'm going to use this computer, and if you hover over here it should play, I think it plays the animation. Yep, there you go. So we just come out of assets, come back to here, hit the little settings cog, replace Lottie sequence, choose this one, and that looks good to me. So let's give this a class of Lottie animation, and I'm going to give it a max width of 200 pixels. That looks about good, and because we've set our container up as flex we know this is going to be in the middle. So at the moment this should just play the animation once, I think. So let's have a look. Plays the animation. That's it, that's the end of the animation. So we want this to react when we hover our mouse over. So all we need to do is make sure our wrapper is selected, or whatever we want to use as the trigger element. So that could be, you could have something over here, you know, like a button that says, you know, hover over this, and then an animation can play on the other side of the screen. Like, it doesn't need to be within each other, which is amazing. So we just click the Lottie wrapper, come over here to our interactions. We're going to make a new element trigger on mouse hover, and we're going to start an animation. I've already got it here. Let's just delete this because I was just doing a little test. Let's do a new one, and we're going to go Lottie hover in. So when our mouse comes in, you can call this whatever you like. That seems to make sense to me. And then before we click the plus to add any timed animations, we don't want to animate this Lottie wrapper, we want to animate our Lottie animation. So we select this, then we come over here, and as we've selected that we now have the option to animate Lottie. So in here we go. So at 0 seconds we're going to set this as our initial state, so it's definitely at 0 seconds. It's going to start on frame 0, so we keep this at 0%. Then we click the plus down here, we're going to do another one, and we're going to say we want this to play it to 100%, and I want this to take 1 second. I know my animation was 1 second. If you did a longer one or you wanted to slow it down, you could put 5 seconds or whatever you want in here. I know it's 1. And now let's preview what happens when we've done that. So we hover in and it's playing super fast, and that's it. Okay, so perhaps 1 second was a bit too quick. Let's just come back in here. Maybe I got that wrong. Oh yeah, it's the other one. The ball was 1 second. This one, let's go with 2 seconds. So we can just come back in here, hit the cog, and we're back into editing it. So all I do is come down here. Let's make that 2 seconds, and we want this to loop. Okay, so if we come out of here, we select loop, and we can preview here, and we can see that's looking pretty good, but it's not really looping. Okay, let's have a look what happens when we hover. These are all the sort of problems I came into when I was doing this yesterday. Okay, so don't worry, you just keep fiddling around with it. So what we actually need to do is we need to set an end, and we need to say, oh, I'm not selected on the right thing. Select Lottie animation, come here, and we're just going to do one more, and we're going to say that this goes back to 0% and it takes 0 seconds. And now when we hover, it's looping. Okay, so I didn't realize that you had to sort of set a final parameter to say, you know, go back to 0 frames, otherwise it just doesn't work. But here's what happens now when we hover out. It's still playing, so we need to set up our hover out to tell it to stop. So we're all happy here. So on hover, Lottie hover in, that's great. So on hover out, select an action. Let's do a new animation. Let's click a new one, and let's go Lottie hover out. Grab our Lottie here, click the plus, select Lottie again, and we're just going to say go back to 0, and we're going to say this should be 0 seconds. Why can't I write 0 in here? What's happening? There we go. That was a glitch. Okay, so we can close this, and then hopefully we come in here and we can just hover over and play our animation, and when we hover out, it's finished. Okay, at the moment that is going, what's happening here, it's not stopping where we're hovering out. So I mean, this might be fine for you, but let's try and fix that. Because if you can see on this one, when you hover out, wherever you hover out, it just stops, which I quite like. So what has gone wrong here? Do we need to set this as the initial? Let's just check that. I think that might be it. That's it. That's all we had to do. So now when we hover out, it's going to stop playing exactly where we were. And I think it's just lagging a little bit now. There we go. That's fine. If we decide that actually that animation is too fast, we can just come back to this original one. Click this center one where we've told it to be 2 seconds and play to 100%. Let's change it to 3 seconds. Oops. And let's preview that. There we go. That's much smoother. That's much nicer. And that's it. It's that easy. So that took me quite a long time of fiddling around and trying to get it to work. So the important things are, on your first one, when you hover in, you need to have 3 states. So you need to have a 0, and that has to be set as the initial state. Your second one is where you put in your duration and set it to 100%, and your third one has to be 0 seconds, and it has to go back to 0. If you put this at 0.5, which I think is what it's set as a default, I think it will play it backwards. What happens here? Yeah, there you go. So it just sort of glitches and starts playing it backwards. So you have to make sure that your third one is set to 0 seconds. And then on your hover out, the important thing to remember is that there's only one state, and it's 0%, and you have to set it as the initial state. And if you do that, it works. And it's so easy. And then all you could do to just duplicate this, because you've already got it all set up, you can just come in here, you could grab your Lottie wrapper, paste it down here. Something doesn't look so great here. What's going on? So let's make this home wrap. Let's do it height. Let's make this auto. Ooh, auto. There we go. And let's give it some padding. And let's give our Lottie wrapper some margin at the bottom. Okay, so now we've got 2. So this second one, we could replace it, and we can just choose our ball. So here we go, we hover into this one, it plays. We hover into this one, and it plays. But at the moment, see, that's going so slowly, so this needs to be a different timing. So we could, let's just do another version and show you how easy it is to duplicate it and edit the time. So on mine here, I've got 6 different animation speeds. which is a bit frustrating. I tried to design them all at the same speed, but it didn't quite work because of the sort of natural motion of the ball needed to feel a bit faster. So we come in here, we come to our interactions, and at the moment we've got Lottie hover in, Lottie hover out. So actually we could rename this to Lottie hover in 1 second. No, it's 3 seconds, isn't it? So we could call that 3 sec. Okay, so let's duplicate this. Okay, so it's number 2 here. Let's edit it and rename it to 1 sec. So we'll just make one that's 1 second long. We click the second one. That's now 1 second, and that is now applied only to this ball. So when we hover in the ball, that feels a lot better. And when we hover in here, so this is a 3 second animation, and the ball is a 1 second animation. So easy. So you see that took like 5-10 minutes. Amazing. Just think of the possibilities of this. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it didn't waste too much of your time. I was trying to look for videos on how to do this, and I couldn't really find one that explained exactly how to do this. So I hope this helped somebody, and if it did, please like and subscribe, and you know, that's great, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.